Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the 19th episode of the Control Freak Podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or at LessAlex on Twitter. Make sure to head on over there and give me a follow. The podcast is proudly supported by Team Solitary Pro. They help sponsor the show, so make sure to go check them out on Twitter as well. I have all of their information in the description and the show notes below. This is a weekly Magic the Gathering podcast devoted to all things Control in Modern. So if you dig Jace the Mind Sculptor to Fairy Time Raveler, Force of Negation, and Mystic Sanctuary, this is the podcast for you. I do also have a Twitch and a YouTube. I've been trying to grind that YouTube, so make sure to head on over there and give me a subscribe and hit that bell notification. If you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you. Same thing, hit that thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button because I come out with new content every single week, whether it is the podcast or I'm going to start doing openings like box openings, and I am about to do a bundle from Throne of Eldraine, which I will be giving away the most expensive card in that bundle, as well as to anyone who anyone who subscribes and likes this video. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm giving away the most expensive other two cards in that. So if you want to be entered to win that, make sure to subscribe and head on over and follow me on Twitch. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just two things. Follow me on Twitch, like and subscribe on here, and then bing, bang, boom, you are entered. So today's episode of the Control Freak Podcast is all about Mystic Sanctuary and how it interacts with Modern. So Modern Control, there's another deck that's also playing Mystic Sanctuary that is the tournament's still going on at SCG Philly. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about, and as you know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or if this is your first one, you may not know, I do like to get the information out there. I don't like to have a lot of fluff, a lot of time that I'm talking about nothing. So let's dig into the content, because today I do have an exciting episode. I'm really excited. Mystic Sanctuary is a card that at face value seems pretty powerful, to be honest. But the blue-white community, the Control community on Twitter and on the internet in general was very split. So when Castle Vantress got spoiled, of course, I was like, oh my gosh, this card is pretty good. It's definitely worth testing. And then, and a lot of people agreed. A lot of people on Twitter agreed. And then they spoiled Mystic Sanctuary. And oh my gosh, everyone lost their mind. There were people on this side saying, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's going to be great. It's going to revolutionize the way we build our decks in Modern. The other half was like, oh, this card's completely unplayable, and it's hot garbage, and no one should even playtest it. Luckily, a lot of people have been grinding this deck and testing it and trying it. Again, my initial thoughts were it's going to be probably like a one-of, and I'll definitely try it as a one-of. Now people are playing up to 4, and there's an old deck that's coming back into the Control zeitgeist, if you will. I'm talking about Miracles. Miracles is back, and with a vengeance. I mean, it's starting to put up results in the 5-0s. Doom Switch has switched to the Miracles build, so of course he is a great player and really has his thumb on the pulse of all things blue-white. So if he's doing it, it's got to be pretty good. As well as John Faro, who is also brewing with it. And yeah, I mean, if those two folks are doing it, it's got to be good. So I want to talk about the decks that are trying to play Mystic Sanctuary, because it's not just blue-white that's getting a boost in the Mystic Sanctuary department. It's also Esper Control is starting to pop up. And I recently commentated a 10K, a modern 10K for Moonbase Market over the weekend. And Sam Black was there playing a Sultai control deck. And I usually don't like to go too far deep into exact numbers of everything, so, but with this deck, it's very, very spicy. I talked to him a little bit. I watched him. So he's playing Mystic Sanctuary as a 3-of, and he's also playing Cryptic Command as a 3-of. Round 1, he Cryptic Command bounce the Sanctuary back to your hand and tap your team. He did that against Boggles. As the game ended, I asked him, how many times did you just cast Cryptic Command? He said, 11. It would have been more had my opponent not conceded. So against Boggles, he just tapped down his team every single turn, bouncing the Mystic Sanctuary back to his hand. But this list is very, very interesting, very, very unique. I'm gonna read off the cards here. We are lucky enough that he posted an image on Twitter, so I'm just going off of that. It's out there. I can put the link to the tweet in the show notes and in the description below. But here it is. So 4 Thought Scours, 4 Opt, 4 Fatal Push, 3 Thought Seize, 1 Inquisition of Kozilek, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 1 Deprive. If you don't know what Deprive is, it's a blue for an instant counter target spell, but you have to bounce a land back to your hand, so that has a really great synergy with Mystic Sanctuary. 3 Into the Story. This is the 7 mana instant from Throne of Eldraine, and it costs 4 less to cast it costs 3 less to cast, if your opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. So that has great synergy with Thought Scour. And obviously late game, having 4 mana draw 4 at instant speed is insane. So definitely good there. He's playing 1 Abrupt Decay, 3 Cryptic Commands, like I said, 1 Vendilion Click, 2 Pulse of Marasas, 2 Assassin's Trophies, 4 Drown in the Lock, so that's his primary piece of removal. And then he's got some lands, of course, other than Mystic Sanctuary, but some fetch lands, some snow basics, and only 1 Field of Ruin. You notice anything missing from this deck? His tweet that he put up was he went 5-1-2. So he did very well. He won a lot. He didn't lose much. He only lost once and had 2 draws. But he not complained, but he mentioned the fact that it's really hard to win when you don't have a way to kill people. So this is a very interesting deck, and something that I think we should definitely have on our radar moving forward. I think adding even maybe just a couple of Jason Mind Sculptors could make this deck have less draws, right? Because literally is the only way to win, where Snapcaster beats and Vendilion Click beats. So he also said that he would consider playing a Time Warp, just to be able to take a bunch of turns. So yeah, his basic recommendation when playing this deck is to play quickly. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something new, and I definitely enjoy it. I chatted to him a little bit about it, and yeah, he said he got a feature match round 2, and he lost to Ponzo, and I came up to him afterwards, and I was like, that's got to be a rough one. He said it was literally the worst matchup, so that definitely makes sense. Of course, control decks and Ponzas, they pretty much got our number. So yeah, Sultai control, very, very interesting. But yeah, moving on to Miracles. This is a list that is really starting to pop up, and with how grindy I think the format is getting, with Jund being just so good. Of course, Tron is very good. Burn still on the radar, or at least should be, right? So this is the deck that John Faro and Doomswitch are both playing. Different variations, but it's for the most part the same list. Entreat the Angels. Entreat the Angels is back. I love it. I love the fact that Entreat the Angels is seeing play with success. So let's look at this deck. We have 4 Terminus, 1 Entreat the Angels, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor, 1 Teferi Hero of Dominaria, 2 Hieroglyphic Illuminations. Love that card is back, and obviously is great with Miracles, being able to have that 1 mana draw spell early, or that 4 mana draw 2, and you can still set up your Terminus or your Entreat the Angels with Jace, or of course with Mystic Sanctuary. 3 Cryptic Commands, because Cryptic Command is excellent with Sanctuary. 3 Force of Negation, 2 Narset, and 2 Teferi Time Raveler. And then we got 2 Mana Leak, 3 Snapcaster. So we're cutting a Snapcaster Mage here in this one. I believe probably for the Entreat, just to be able to win the game. So, I mean, that's fine. Being able to win the game's probably pretty relevant. We've got 4 Path to Exiles, 4 Opt, because Opt is just the best when it comes to modern cantrips with cards like Terminus, because being able to do it when they attack you is just, you can't beat that. You just cannot beat that instant speed action. And then 2 Spell Snare still, Rin and 6, Stoneforge Mystic, these cards are still very prevalent in the format. We got to be able to have a way, when we only have 1 mana on the battlefield, to be able to interact with those cards. So definitely Spell Snare. I definitely totally wholeheartedly agree with that. Mana base, 3 Mystic Sanctuaries. I will talk about the mana base a little bit more in depth than the Sultai deck, just because I feel like a lot of the listeners are very interested in. It's been a question that I've already been getting. What to cut, right? What to cut out of the deck. So he's still playing a Gaia Reach Sanitarium and 4 Field of Ruins. So that's 5 lands that don't generate blue or white. So still pretty rough in that department. Looks like 6 snow-covered islands, 2 snow-covered plains, 3 hallowed fountains, 3 deltas, and then 4 flooded strands. So 25 lands there. So yeah, but I mean, again, Mystic Sanctuary is a good card and is definitely something that I'm really excited about. I was excited about it when it got spoiled. I was on the side of it's probably playable, and now that a lot of people, John Faro and Doomswitch and Francesco Amati are all in on, I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's brew these decks. Deprive is something that I've been trying. Deprive, I think, is good. Being able to, early it's not so good, right? Being able to having to bounce a non-Mystic Sanctuary land. Not great. Not where you want to be. But having a hard counterspell late game, just stone cold counterspell that also is going to rebuy you a card in your graveyard, just excellent. So looking at this sideboard, there are no rests in peace. Okay, and that makes sense, right? Because your lands are now helping your graveyard plan, right? So 2 Celestial Purge, 1 Disenchant, 1 Stony Silence, 2 Timely Reinforcements. Obviously, burn is still everywhere. 1 Ceremonious Rejection, an additional copy of Spell Snare, Disdainful Stroke, 2 Vendilion Clicks, 1 Surgical Extraction, 1 Dovin's Veto, and 2 Ashiok Dream Renderers. I like the clicks. Being able to pressure your Tron opponent is always nice. Being able to hate against combo decks. Obviously, Click's great against that. I've always been on the fence about Vendilion Click main deck, and the fact that I'm seeing this list and having them in the board, I definitely, I'm a fan of course, Surgical. If you've been listening to the podcast, you are very aware of my thoughts of Surgical Extraction in the main deck. Hogak was a nightmare for me, obviously because of Hogak, but also Surgical main deck was just like, oh, I hated it. I hated it so much. I think Timely's still relevant. Stony, obviously, with the Wurza decks, very, very strong still. Disenchant, same vein, and of course it hits Batter Skulls. So in Celestial Purge, great against Jund, great against the Grixis deck, the Grixis Wurza deck. Yeah, I think that this list is a great starting point. I'm definitely intrigued to see what the community builds on with. I do think there is a spot for Deprive in the main deck. And I think we could also play 24 lands. We could play 24 lands in this deck. So maybe you just trim one of the Hallowed Fountains, maybe. Then because that's another side to this. There's another angle to this. Because we're playing Terminus, we can kind of skimp on the white sources. I know that's kind of crazy, but it's only one white when you're doing it right. So I definitely think skimping on the white sources is fine, as long as you're cognizant of your fetches. When you fetch, you've got to go get white sources if you think you're going to need them in this deck. But I'm just really, really excited about this deck. Paradoxical Urza in the SCG today, there was someone playing, I didn't catch the name, but someone was playing Mystic Sanctuary. You'd play it, buy back your Paradoxical, so put it back on top of your decks, use the Paradoxical in your hand to rebuy. I mean, look, this card is very good, you know? There are a couple of locks, too, that you can do. Of course, the Cryptic Command lock, being able to counter their thing or bounce or tap their team, like Sam Black was saying, being able to just tap all of the boggles down and then bounce, draw, do it again, you know. And especially if you have Jace the Mind Sculptor out, these of course get insanely better. The Deprive is also an option for a potential lock. And then Gaia Reach Sanitarium lets you draw out of it as well. So if you have Gaia Reach Sanitarium on the battlefield, you know, that was one of the things that naysayers were arguing. Oh, well, sure, you can Cryptic Lock them, but you're never going to get to draw another card. Well, of course, we're playing Planeswalkers. We're playing Jason Mind Sculptor. We're playing Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, because, of course, being able to draw that extra card and get out of being cryptic locking yourself is very important, I think. And yeah, having Planeswalkers or even Gaia Reach is very important. And of course, Gaia Reach is very good with being able to lock them out with Narset. You know, you know about that lock. But yeah, the big thing too is, what decks are we trying to beat right now? There's a lot going on in Modern. There's a lot of kind of haziness, confusion as to what decks are really, really going on in Modern, and I think we should definitely be ready for Jund. Jund is a grind fest, and Jund has gotten worse for us, I think, over the last few months. I still do believe that Burn is out there, especially in St. Louis. If you're from the St. Louis area or the Midwest, really, Burn is definitely still out there. So be packing your timely reinforcements, because holy smokes, I would still be playing one. If you're playing traditional control, still be playing one. If you're playing Stoneforge package, definitely still be playing one. If you're playing the Stoneforge package, there was Joe Bernal was at the 10K. He's a monster with that deck, by the way. He was playing 4 Cryptic Commands and 4 Force of Negations. I definitely dig it, because playing only 2 Cryptics and 3 Forces, you want Cryptic Command, because being able to tap their team and bash in with the Batter Skull is just awesome. And I think you could still play Mystic Sanctuary in that deck too. But yeah, if you're still playing Stoneblade, definitely be playing 4 Forces and at least 3 Cryptics. It's just so good, and so it provides a way to tap down the team and win the game, So Jund, obviously Tron. Now our Tron matchup has obviously gotten better, and I think continues to get better. I haven't really been seeing them playing Once Upon a Time like a lot of people were anticipating. Turns out that just Sylvan Scrying and Ancient Stirrings are just very good, right? But the Urza decks, the new paradoxical Urza decks that have been popping up, this is a deck that we need to be aware of. I said in the last episode, kind of teased that it was the deck we should be playing, but if, these Terminus decks are popping up, I'm a big fan of the Terminus decks against the paradoxical decks, because bouncing all their tokens back up and just doing it every single turn, they're never going to be able to gain traction, really. But I'm excited. I'm very excited about the way we're going here, and Mystic Sanctuary has got me stoked. It should have you stoked too if you're a fan of the blue-white archetype. Eldrazi Tron's still there too. Obviously, Chalice on 1 definitely still hurts us, but we have the tools to be able to fight them. Being able to now put a Cryptic Command on top, bounce a thing or tap the team, we have ways around it, and they almost never go for Mycosynth Lattice against us, because them resolving a 6-mana artifact, unless we're hellbent, unless we don't have any cards in our hands, it would be crazy of them to try and resolve that against us. So I definitely think that Eldrazi Tron is a winnable matchup. And then Grixis Death Shadow still there, still poking its head around. Mardu Shadow still there. Both fine matchups. Anything that wants to just deploy one threat and try and get there against us is I think something that we're very well prepared for, especially playing 4 Terminus. Oh my gosh, that Death Shadow doesn't stand a chance against Miracles. So definitely glad to see that Miracles is looking pretty real. Got a lot of good players testing it out too, so I'm really excited for the different iterations. We've seen one iteration, now we're on the second one. So as time develops and this deck gets solidified, of course, metagames always matter. Metagames always ultimately decide what a correct 75, quote unquote, looks like. And that's the thing, is blue-white or any control deck, really, there is no air quote perfect 75. It's all metagame dependent. So Titan Shift is it can be rough. Of course, having Force Negations is definitely good if you're trying to beat Titan Shift, or if you're in a metagame, maybe at your FNM, that there's a solid player that plays Titan Shift. Ruined Halo is an excellent option against them, because you can just name Valakut and it shuts them down pretty hard. Then you just have to deal with the prime time and the Steves, which they can get in there. They can get in there. Then we have Dredge. Dredge is, terminusing a gigantic board of Dredgy boys is just, it's so good. It's so good because they don't go to the graveyard, and paying 1 mana is just excellent. Dredge, I don't know if it's a great matchup for Miracles. It can't be nearly as bad as Blue White or Stoneblade, though. I can guarantee that, because Terminus just eats their lunch, just packs them up, bullies them at the lunch table, says, hey, that lunch is mine. Give me that lunch. So Dredge against Terminus, they do not like to see X4 Terminus on the deck list. So and then we have Humans as well. Humans is a deck that they can beat us, right? They can have the booter meddling mage hands. That's not typical that they do that. But when you're playing 4 1-mana Wraths, it gets much, much better. And even if you're playing traditional blue-white control, having just 2 main deck Supreme Verdicts and like a third one out of the sideboard, or like a Wrath of God or a Day of Judgment or Settle the Wreckage or whatever your flavor of third piece of Wrath is, the Humans is usually a pretty decent matchup. Amulet Titan had a great showing at the SCG playing Once Upon a Time, so Amulet Titan's tough. Obviously, they kind of go all in on one creature a lot of the times. They're trying to attack us for like 17 or 20 or whatever. And if we don't draw the correct half of our deck, they can just kill us. But generally speaking, us having Force and Negation, us now being able to buy back our Cryptic Commands and our relevant removal spells, being able to put a Path to Exile back on top of our deck with Mystic Sanctuary makes that deck a lot less frightening. Because, Mystic Sanctuary just changes kind of the context of a lot of these matchups. The way that Snapcaster Mage sort of does, being able to rebuy one spell one time is excellent. I love Snapcaster Mage, one of my favorite cards ever printed, but being able to do it turn after turn, and if you have a way to draw that card, so if you have a Jace on the battlefield, being able to draw that card that you put on top and set up a Miracle Terminus, it's just insane. It's insane. Moving on down the line, Hardened Scales. That's been a deck that I think we've had success against for pretty much the beginning of their existence. One path early really does wreck their game. Of course, we can lose. Nothing's full sure, But yeah, and then of course Mardu Shadow. We've kind of touched on that. Shadow's basically our best matchup. Infect, that's Infect. They can just do the same thing, kill you. But I think typically speaking, Terminus is a hell of a card against them. Not having to target them and being able to wrath their board at instant speed after they've fired up their Infecty land is just insane. So, and Autumn's Veil doesn't do anything against it. They can give all their peeps hexproof, but they're still going to the bottom of their library. So, and then in the mirror, that's a very interesting proposition. It's still all about hitting your land drops and resolving your planeswalkers at the end of the day. That's what you got to do in the mirror. It's what you've always had to do in the mirrors. If your opening hand is a little land heavy, keep it. As long as you've got some cantrips or a counter spell, it usually ends up panning out for you. The player that hits their land drops and resolves their planeswalkers is definitely favored in that matchup. So, and then of course against Stoneblade, any Stoneblade deck, killing Stoneforge Mystic or just keeping her off the table, not resolving is always good. Disenchants are amazing. But yeah, I am definitely super stoked to be talking about these decks. The Miracles is one of my favorite decks in Legacy, or it was before the banning of Top. But But yeah, I'm excited. And if you're still playing traditional control, this Monday they had the Modern Challenge decks, top 16 decks posted. So I'm going to read off D. Pelsier's first place Modern Blue-White Control deck. This player was not playing any Mystic Sanctuaries. It was kind of before the hype train behind Mystic Sanctuary really got out there and really showed how good the card is. But this is a rough sketch of what Control could look like moving forward. And it's very, very stock for the most part. But I'll read it off here. 3 Jason Mind Sculptors, 2 Narset Parter of Veils, 1 Teferi Hero of Dominaria, 3 Teferi Time Ravelers, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 1 Oust, 2 Verdicts, 1 Timely Reinforcements, 3 Cryptic Commands, 3 Force, 1 Logic Knot, 2 Mana Leak, 4 Opt, 4 Path, 2 Spell Snares, 3 Colonnades, and then 2 Glacial Fortress. Again, if you're going to be playing this deck, you definitely want to be playing. I would probably be cutting maybe a Glacial Fortress and maybe even a Colonnade. And then the sideboard, 2 Timely Reinforcements, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Monastery Mentors, 1 Settle the Wreckage, pretty spicy, 1 Surgical Extraction, 2 Celestial Purge, 1 Dovin's Veto, 3 Rest in Peace, and 2 Stony Silence. Also, y'all should be playing Winds of Abandon. I'm sorry, this card is excellent. And after turn 2, it is just all upside compared to Oust. I've been preaching this card since it was spoiled. If you go back to that episode of Modern Horizons, spoiler episode, Winds of Abandon is so good. So many times you get to up to fairy, they'll play another creature, and then you instant speed get to overload it, and then the game ends. The game ends if that happens. You don't lose if you get to overload at instant speed. Actually, if you get to overload that card at all, you don't lose. You know, you might go to a draw, but you're definitely not losing. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. The Sultai deck looks sweet. I definitely think that there's room for innovation there. Stoneblade, definitely still prevalent. Smashing in with Batter Skulls is definitely still good, and especially if you have a burn heavy meta like St. Louis, I'm definitely a fan of that. Traditional Control though might be getting pushed out. Might be, because I think Mystic Sanctuary just shoving Miracles back into the forefront of the mix in the Control community. I definitely think it's good. I'm really excited to see more iterations of it, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this week's episode. I just wanted to talk about Mystic Sanctuary. The card is amazing. The card is definitely changing the face of what a Control deck can be in Modern, and changing the face of a brand new deck. The Paradoxical Outcome deck already adopting Mystic Sanctuary, so I'm super stoked. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening and watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on the podcast app, go on over there, give me 5 stars, say a couple of kind words. It really, really does help with their algorithms, and I appreciate everybody. Next week's episode is going to be the 20th. I'm so stoked. I'm going to have to record middle of the week, still be uploaded on Sunday night like I always do, but I am going to be going to SCG Indy. I'm at 90% that I'm playing Miracles. I gotta test it a bunch, so I'm gonna be on Moto playing a lot here over the last week before the tournament. So yeah, it'll be a different bit of an episode. Might try and get somebody on for that episode. But yeah, everybody, thanks again for hanging out, for listening to me talk about Blue Eye Control. If you dig the podcast, again, go on over to the podcast app, 5-star review. It super does help. Thanks. Big shout out to Team Solitary Pro for helping me out, producing the podcast, and for letting me play in a bunch of events, helping me play in opens and IQs and all that. I definitely appreciate them. All their information will be in the show notes. And yeah, thanks everybody. And as always, be kind to one another, Magic players. Have a great night.